I was 6 years old, walking down a lane in County Clare with my mum when we found a metal comb lying in the grass in the middle of the road. And what happened next taught me my first lesson about the banshee. And it wasn't necessarily what you'd expect. This moment shaped how I understand the other crowd, the good neighbours, the she, the fairies, to this day. And it could save you from making dangerous assumptions about Irish fairy encounters. So, full story. We were walking towards the village, me in these oversized wellies I'd taken off a shelf in the cottage that didn't fit properly, making that really distinctive suck and drop sound as I walked. I was looking for these like dandelion puffs so that I could kick them, as you do when you're 6, when I spotted this thing lying in the lane, a metal comb that looked old. I stopped and looked at it, and to my innocent question about returning it to the neighbours, who I presumed had dropped it, was met with this sharp warning of, "Don't touch it." Now, none of us touched it, but we all stood around staring at it. My brothers and my sister was there as well. And even as a child, I knew that something was off here in this kind of remote lane. As we walked on in kind of an unusual silence, my mum told us about the Tuies, these farmer lads who lived down the road, coming home from a dance or a market or something and finding a very similar comb in this very lane. They heard this long wailing cry after seeing the comb, and the next day they got word that their uncle had died in the night. Now, I suggested, again, maybe it just fell from someone's pocket and maybe it was nothing. And my mum's maybe carried a weight that I didn't really understand then. And on our return journey from the village, we gave the comb a wide berth, and the next time we walked in that lane, it was gone. Now, for decades, I kind of filed this away as family folklore, interesting but not real in any way I needed to pay attention to. And it wasn't until I started reading more fairy stories and really researching the folklore collection, the school's collection in particular, that's hosted through UCD. At the time, it was very much a go to the library and look at microfiche. Comment below if you know what microfiche is, but that distinctive clack, clack, clack as you click through microfiche in a library will forever remain my introduction to the folklore archives. And thankfully now we have them digitised at the website duchas.ie, duchas.ie. But at the time I started reading the stories, and the school's collection is great because it is literally a project that helped children or instructed children in primary schools all over the country to go home with a set of questions and ask them of their parents, their grandparents, their aunties and uncles, their neighbours, anybody elderly or older in generations, and to literally collect these stories. And they were written down in these big exercise books usually by the kids who had the best handwriting, in the school or in the classes. And the stories were collected in that way. And they were, again, first put onto microfiche and then digitised after. And now they've been transcribed. So we've got a searchable database now, which is brilliant. Fantastic archives. So you can go and you can look up these fairy stories yourself. But this is how I found my way in. And story after story in the folklore archives described similar experiences: combs, mirrors, jewellery appearing before death omens. And I really had to confront that my 6-year-old self had witnessed, potentially at least, an authentic banshee warning, whether I believed in such things or not. Now, by that point I probably did, in all fairness. This wasn't the Hollywood banshee from Darby O'Gill or any of that crap, or the romantic fairy of children's books. This is something far more complex. And my mum didn't react with terror. The banshee doesn't bring death or cause death, but with appropriate caution, showing respect beyond understanding. And the Tui story wasn't shared as ghost tale entertainment. It was practical information about how our world intersects with the other crowd. And even most recently, I did a little kind of spot check with my own children who are grown up now. And while they would have grown up with these stories, I was very curious about whether like their friends would be aware of any of this. And the banshee was the one that most people would know about, that most families would have a story about something to do with the banshee. And this is how fairy faith actually works in Ireland. It's not through ritual invocations, but through recognition of signs, through paying attention, and through the appropriate response, which is caution and respect. And these encounters still happen, but a lot of people would dismiss them or misinterpret them completely, or just be, afraid of them and try and just dismiss them. So learning to spot genuine fairy signs requires understanding traditional patterns, not modern interpretations. You're not going to get this out of a fiction book, right? And the Irish approach has always been this caution and respect, not attempts at communication or relationship building. While I would be the first one to tell you that Irish paganism is all about right relationship and building connection, the Sidhe are the exception that proves the rule. We don't want to build relationship with them. We don't want to be their friends here in Ireland. I know a lot of people around the world think that fairies are really cool and, they should, go and get married to them or whatever. But it's really, really not the done thing here in Ireland. Every single tale we have, almost every single tale, there are a couple where somebody will do the fairies a favour, either being forced to do it or just kind of wandering into it and ending up helping kind of unwittingly almost, and they get rewarded. And there are certain people within the tradition, such as a Banfassa, such as Biddy Early, for example, who would be said to have a relationship with the fairies. But even those relationships would have started here, would have started with caution and respect, not with going out and trying to make friends with them, right? And pretty much every other story or every other example, of which there are many and plenty, will show you that they are not your friends, right? And every reaction we get from our older generation is at least caution. The fear aspect that a lot of people have, I don't want to go into that territory either, because it's not about fear. It's not that they're, again, causing death or whatever, especially, the banshee particularly. Even the fairies don't really cause death specifically. They can do. There are definitely cases of it, but really they want to kind of drain you and take you away and, play with you or make you their own. And none of these are good things, by the way. None of these are good things. So this is where the caution comes in. People might be afraid of it, definitely, but we do generally just stay away. So 3 traditional warning signs to look for when it comes to the fairies, the Sidhe, the other crowd, the good neighbours, would be objects appearing where they shouldn't be, such as personal items like combs, mirrors, jewellery, or disappearing, things that should be there. Secondly would be unexplained sounds. Really, really, you have to understand what is a fox sound and what might be a banshee sound, because sometimes when a vixen calls in the country at night time, it sounds pretty eerie and otherworldly, so that could be a whole thing. Owls would be another one, but natural sounds are very different from the sounds that people describe when they are hearing the banshee. And those sounds differ from region to region, so that's a whole thing too. And again, familiarity with the folklore is the only way to understand what you're hearing, what you're seeing. The third sign then would be animals behaving unusually around specific locations or objects. Animals are a very good indicator, especially cats, a very, very good indicator of things that shouldn't be there but that you might not necessarily be able to see. And if you encounter any of these signs, what I would strongly advise you to do is to follow the Irish tradition. Don't touch, show respect, and pay attention to what follows. And by the way, this is whether you're in Dublin or Dubai. The Irish fairies within the folklore are recorded as travelling all over the world. And when we think of them and understand them as otherworld beings and entities, the other world being a place where time runs completely different, I really don't think that they would be restricted by geography either. Plus, you would have a lot of, wherever you are in the world, would have a local version of the fairies. So all of that has to be taken into account, right? Now, in another video, in my next video, I will share what I learned when the other crowd made direct contact with me at Tara in County Meath, and why they weren't happy about a lot of modern fairy books. But for now, I would suggest, if you would like to learn more about the fairy faith in Ireland, you can look up my book, which is of that title, The Fairy Faith in Ireland. And there's a lot in there, including this story in full detail, but there's a lot in there about the actual, real, genuine, authentic fairy tradition. And if you don't want to buy my book for any reason, that's completely fine. Go to duchas.ie, duchas.ie, and look at the folklore for yourself, because it's fascinating. So I will see you next time. Slán go fóill, and catch you in the next video.